Record your message after the tone.
Hey, Taylor. This is Nick P., first-time caller, long-time listener. Really appreciate this show. Doing some good work there. I figured I would share a quick story. I was working for a big cruise line, worked really hard to get the gig, and then spent a lot of time just kind of working at it and trying to stay in their good graces and do a good job every time I was on there. And then I was informed that I would no longer be working there anymore. Just no particular reason. Just, I'm not as good as their A-material people. And, it was a kind of a deal breaker and kind of a punch to the gut. But it was a good life lesson because you kind of learn that certain things are just out of your control, and you're not going to be everybody's favorite. You can be one, favorite act or a favorite in a certain theater or a certain community, and then you can go to a different area, and then you're just not. And there's kind of some beauty in that, and something I've been processing over the past couple of weeks since getting this information. Thanks, pal. You're doing good work. Bye.
Have a breakdown or breakthrough you want to share on the show? Give us a call on the break line at 323-524-7456. Again, that's 323-524-7456.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
We are recording. Hey everybody, welcome to About to Break. I'm your host Taylor Hughes, and I am currently in Hollywood, California with Sethward.
Yay!
Dude, thanks for doing this.
Oh, I'm so happy to be on here.
We have been talking about this for months and months, but it's been really weird. I'd be like, hey, I'm going to be in town tomorrow. Are you available tomorrow?
And then I don't know a single clue about what my schedule is, anything more than a day, so it's a crapshoot, really.
It's really what life is like when you have a bunch of people who are nocturnal.
Yeah, that's really what it is.
Most of us, we start doing life around 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, and then I'm realizing, stores are closed. Businesses don't want to talk to me when I'm actually awake and around.
Right.
Doesn't work out all the time.
Well, that's where, like with this, I feel, I'm just recording here. Something people don't know, there's a little behind the scenes look for people.
Oh, yes.
I'm recording on my phone as a backup.
Oh, genius.
I've recorded every conversation on my phone as a backup, and in over 100 episodes, I've never had to use it. But
I'm
amazing. Still such a nerd that I'm worried we're going to lose.
Oh, I love that.
Because this is going to be the podcast where we discover the meaning of life.
And if you lose that audio, the world will hate us.
What will happen?
You knew and you didn't record
How
it.
Dare you?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. So we have the weirdness of entertainers' schedules are always different. Most of us don't know what's happening from day to day. And then I don't live in the city. So that's where it's for me.
I'm not supposed to say.
No, you can say I live in Upland.
Oh, yes.
Do you know where that is?
Upland is where the Raiders came from.
No, that's Oakland. That's Oakland.
I hear it's a bad neighborhood.
Yeah.
Upland is. No, Upland's isn't it south of LA?
No, it's east.
Okay. I knew it wasn't
east,
up.
Right along the foothills east. So it's between LA and Orange County.
Oh, okay, cool.
But, yeah, man. So that's why I'm always poor Seth, I've been like, hey, man, I'm going to be there in 2 days from this window. Such a dork.
I love it.
Well, I'm grateful that you didn't give up on me and that we are here. We've done it.
It's quite an honor. So
man, I walked in. We are here in your home.
Yes.
And I am blown away. You've created... I think everything in this room is pretty much things you've made.
It's homemade, which means it could fall apart at any moment.
No, you have.
So beware.
The corner of this room we're in has a tree that you've made, but the tree has little secret compartments and cubby holes and a terrarium.
Yes, I cut a hole in it for my snake. My pet snake lives in my tree.
Oh, does the snake have a name?
Ophatlia is her name.
Ophatlia.
And it is because when I got her, she was very fat, and but I wanted it to be classy. You know, I didn't want to.
Right.
I didn't want to call her Fat Snake. You know.
No, that's degrading.
That would be sad, and people would start wondering what kind of a father I am.
Right.
So Ophatlia seemed to be. It's like Ophelia, but Ophatlia.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. This is I have to make a lot of things because I don't have the luxury of buying everything. So most of what is around is scrap material, scrap wood, cobbled together.
Yeah, but it's built it looks like a nice set. You know what I mean?
That's very kind of you. Thank you so much.
Well, and I was admiring this lovely velvet curtain that you have. It's a theater curtain.
Yeah, in a way.
Yeah. But then you've welded a bunch of.
Yeah, behind it is my bed.
It's like a Murphy
and behind
bed.
That is a closet I made for all my clothes that doesn't fit in my room because I live in a small room. It's all out of necessity.
Yeah.
And then it's also something that I love to do when I'm not wanting to get what I need to be getting done. Right. I will digress and procrastinate by making things that I think, I need this. I need to have a bed that folds down.
Right.
When in actuality, maybe I just should have got a twin bed that's smaller to fit the room. But I was like, nah. We got a king size, baby, and I'm gonna make a king size Murphy, baby.
It's amazing.
There's not a whole lot of things that make sense to people who come in and see, but I tell you, they made sense. They made so much sense when I was in the middle of making them.
Now, have you always built things? Like when you were a kid, were you tinkering in your room and making things?
Yes, in many ways. I think it started with my father, who's a mechanical engineer. So he was always having to either fix things, take them apart because he knew how, or would prove to himself that he knew how to fix the dishwasher, washing machine. Everything was always broken. He was always fixing them, but then they never were always fixed, even after he fixed them. So he was always fixing the fix of the thing that was broken.
Was he pretty even tempered when he would work on stuff, or did he get a little?
Yeah, because he enjoyed it, I think.
Was it like the dad on the Christmas Story? Where
I see it now as I'm older, and I'll come back home, and he, even just this last Christmas when I'm home, and he's like, nothing of mine works, and I'm always like, well, because you made it from scrap. It's gonna work for a while.
Right.
But then he made a furnace, he welded it out of, a whole out of scrap metal that was from a well, and then other pieces of pipes and stuff. He just welded it together, and it's filling up the shop with smoke, and he's like, oh, nothing. I'm like, you made this though, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing, but at the same time, I'm like, you gotta cut yourself a break, which I'm constantly now seeing from what my dad does, that I'm like, I'll get frustrated with something, and I'm like, well, you made this. You didn't pay a lot of money for somebody to make it perfect. You tried your best. And that goes for anywhere from making costumes to editing a video to having a couch. I cut the side of this couch off that we're sitting on because
Are you serious?
It didn't fit, so I cut the edge off.
What?
And now these cushions slowly just fall off.
But then
side.
You sewed up the edge or something?
I sewed up the edge. Yeah,
it looks finished. It doesn't look like you cut a couch. With
I didn't know how to do upholstery before I cut the edge off, and then I realized, I don't know how to do this when I'm in the middle of it.
See,
kind of figured it out.
But I think there's something special about. I mean, I think this happens with a lot of entertainers. You get an idea for your act, and the props you need don't exist. And then you end up going to hardware stores and craft stores, and I wonder how many of us look like lunatics, like grown men just walking around Michael's, like,
yep.
Is that the sequence I want, or do I want the 3/8 diameter?
I first go to Home Depot, which they usually never have it, but at least I feel like I'm okay.
Well, they didn't
wander.
You walk into Joann's, you're like, they didn't have any puffy paint at Home Depot.
It's puffy, but it's paint,
right?
Sir. Yeah. I can't tell you. Actually, Joanne's is the only place that I felt truly like a woman, I think, in LA.
Yeah.
Because I was looked down on so heavily. Like, I was so stupid when I walked up to him and was like, I need a sewing machine that embroiders and it needs to be blah, blah, blah. And they're like, you don't know what you're talking about. Believe.
You said cross stitch.
And I was like,
not back
exactly, because I really didn't,
Right,
to be
yeah.
honest. And I didn't really belong there. But I was like, dude with a big mustache. And they were just like, get out of our space. I was like, okay, all right. I understand.
But
Anyway.
that's that attitude, though, is really... I think anyone who does anything in entertainment, it started off as being really crappy at it, right? Like,
Sure.
But it's interesting though that ongoing, like in your act, like you're having to create things where you're going, I've got this idea, but this thing doesn't exist, and I don't even know how to get it to that point.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's why I've kind of fallen into this style of performance where I do characters or some type of comedy, but a lot of it is based in failure on stage. And it's almost like you could look at it from an angle of being a cop-out, that you're like, you haven't even practiced this before you got on stage. Yeah. But at another point, it is like almost controlled chaos or controlled failure, where you know this is going to fall apart. I know this for sure. Like the costume is going to fall off of my body.
And you don't know how or when or...
Right, I don't know
gonna be in.
If it's going to land exactly where I want it to, if it's going to land with the audience that, sorry, this is my phone that is, I have the Wilhelm scream as my text.
Oh, do you? I was like,
Sometimes
it sounded like somebody.
It's like, yeah, exactly. It's like,
really?
It's like, but it's almost like it's planned, which oddly goes along with what I'm saying, is that I don't know when I'm going to get a text, so I don't know when I'm going to get a great sound effect for my life.
Right.
But it's the same with getting on stage, and I've kind of made that, in many ways, this planned chaos to be like my style or the form of comedy that I've fallen into, because I'm just immersed in that, whether it's because everything's homemade or it's because I don't have the capabilities of choreographing every little thing. I just don't, my brain doesn't work that way. I can't, I've been in groups where we're like, we have a practice group and we rehearse and the bits need to be very structured, and I do not succeed in that. I have a very hard time. So anyway.
What is it about the structure of it? You just feel like it cramps because you're so good with improvising.
Well,
things will happen in the moment on stage with you, and you just go with it to where I think most of the time the audience thinks it was planned,
right? Because
you just make it work.
I think I learned from an early age that I'm funnier on accident, and so I kind of like leaned into that in some ways. Yeah. There's so many times. I love hanging out with, I have a couple of buddies of mine that I do music festival comedies with, and they're so quick. They're so sharp and they're so funny. And I love hanging out with them because they tell me how funny I am a lot of times. But I did not know that was a joke.
Really?
So much more often than not.
Really?
A buddy of mine, Pete Stratt, is so fast with everything. He'll laugh at something I said, and I'm like, and I've defaulted to be like, ha ha ha, like I meant to say this, whatever and then I'm like, explain to me why you're laughing at what was just said, just so that I know. And
I got this great new bit, and once I figure out why it's funny,
it'll take the world by storm.
It's already killing.
Yeah,
I just don't conceptually know what it
makes me feel so good, because he's like that was genius, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, great, I'll remember that next time. But it's like the people that are around you, and I don't know. That's kind of become who I am now. I think in many ways.
Were you, before you realized that was kind of your persona and your way of doing comedy, when you first decided you were going to perform, what was that like? Like, did you try to juggle? Were you doing what was your, you know what I mean?
I did stand up. I did like open mics for a while, and it was very difficult because I didn't feel like I had to have a specific structure that everyone else was doing, or that they had joke structure or just set structure. And so I have some recorded because I was being very studious about it. I was like, this isn't working, so I'm going to record myself, analyze it 1,000,000 times, and by just sheer force, I'm going to make this work. And so it was like what jokes. There were all these observations that to me seemed odd, and I throw them into joke structure, and they should have worked,
right?
But none of them did. So
yeah.
There was stand-up that I was trying to figure out, and then I think it fell into physical comedy being just like something I've always loved, but didn't really know what aspects of physical comedy it was that I loved.
Yeah.
And then found that like a lot of what I'm like truly drawn to are basic elements of clowning. But I never, for once, when I was, I think like high school going into trying to become an entertainer, I was like, I'm going to be a clown. That was never something that I thought was a occupation that aligned with what I wanted.
Yeah.
It was, I want to be an actor in the comedic sense, and Jim Carrey is an idol, like an icon.
I was going to ask.
Idol. So, and nowhere in my mind was I like, Jim Carrey's a clown, because he wasn't a clown. He was just a genius actor, comedian. Yeah. And then, I started taking certain classes and stuff and realizing like, oh no, Jim Carrey is a beautiful clown that just doesn't have a red nose and a wig on, but he's just the most elegant of clowns that you could ever be made in American cinema, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
So,
I remember watching Liar Liar for the first time.
Oh man.
And the bathroom scene where he's beating himself up. And I remember just going, that's just a guy that can do that. Yeah. That's amazing.
He cares about not caring. And that's what's so beautiful about him, is that he's doing him 110%. And at a time when I think it was, I don't know, I think the early 90s and 90s were definitely like the cool kids were on top. The cool kids were out and they were successful, and he was like, I'm throwing my body around and it's going to work.
Well, you talk about the cool kids. There was always, like, growing up for me, I never had like my group. I was the goofy guy that could hang with this group or that group. Yeah. So you know, and I think that's common with a lot of entertainers. You're like accepted by several groups because you're entertaining and you're fun. But I know, you never really have like a group that's your own.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like with Carey, all of a sudden he was goofy and he was out there and he was weird, but he was also cool because of that.
Right. Right. His confidence like just overwhelmed. Yeah. And he kind of like, oh wait, he's kind of stupid because he did that. You were like, but he was so confident about doing it.
Oh my gosh. Because the commitment you have to.
Oh, so committed. I love it.
It's like, did you ever skateboard? Are you skateboarder?
I've always wanted to. I think I went through a phase in junior high where I wore Billabong t-shirts and I was like, I'm going to do this. But never had a skateboard, never had even skateboarding shoes. I just had a t-shirt and I wanted to do it. But no, I wish. Never did.
I thought I was a skateboarder because I would ride my skateboard around the neighborhood, and I could ollie up a curb, and I thought I'm a skateboarder.
Oh, in my book, you were.
Oh, dude.
You were.
Well, then my friends who are real skaters took me to a skate park. Oh. And I remember standing at the edge of a half pipe, and they're trying to explain to me how to drop in. And it was like I'm there teetering, and that was the moment where I realized I'm not a skateboarder. I can't do it. You know what I mean? And I feel like with physical comedy, there's that level of commitment you have to just lean into the fall and go, this is going to happen.
Right. Yep.
That scares the crap out of me. But when you do those type of things on stage, you make it look so effortless.
Oh man, it's awesome that you say that.
I look at that and I go, how the hell do you practice doing that fall? Or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't really. The performances are practices really. So,
but you have to just go, this could hurt, but I'm going to do it? Or, I mean,
it's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times it's worth it, but it's also, I think the confidence in a way for some of the pratfalls and other things that I get
Right.
myself into are it's like a mask. It's like you have this overwhelming amount of confidence, and then that commitment to whatever it is lies to you and
Right.
says that it's not, like, you are a caterpillar, and when a caterpillar falls from a tree,
Right.
it just shakes it off and climbs
Yeah.
back up because it didn't, that's what happens. Gravity doesn't affect caterpillars because
Right.
they don't live in the same world. And I think there's a piece of that, and don't get me wrong, I don't feel like I'm that mentally challenged, but I think there is when I get on stage,
you get
and
in that
have
certain
adrenaline,
zone where you go
zone,
like, this is,
you tell yourself that, I'm 100% committing to this, and therefore if it won't hurt, or if it does, it's going to be afterwards. So
Yeah.
we'll deal with it later. I'm getting older, and I'm slowly making wiser choices on stage, but I think youth also plays a big part of it.
yeah.
Of just being, because I'm gonna live forever, so
Right.
it's like, you're not gonna kill yourself on stage. That's
Right,
impossible.
right. It can't happen.
It was impossible.
What was the first character you came up with that you were like, oh my gosh, I came up with a thing, like this is
Oh man,
something that, because when we
Yeah.
first start, we emulate other people, or we
Right.
do,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you do bits you saw Jim Carrey do at
Right.
school, and people
Mhm.
laugh. But like, do you remember the moment where you went on stage and you did a thing, and it was like,
Yeah, I think the best example of this would be a character that I did that is now considered just like old copycat of everything that everybody else is doing. But I had this character I was doing for a really long time. This wasn't even that long ago, but I think it was I don't know, it may be the best example, but I had this series where I was doing like all these different circus characters. So I was like
Okay.
this ringleader that was terrified of lions, but he like didn't know how to use a whip, and he fought his chair that he used to like
oh yeah,
to fight the lion,
but he would fight the chair.
yeah, the
instead.
chair was never working. It was a folding chair, so it was always folding on top of him, and he was like breaking it. So the whole bit is him just telling you you're safe because I have this chair, and
Yeah.
lions are afraid of. Oh, anyway, he fell over, but that wasn't even the character that I was thinking of. I have this circus freak who was born without any lips, and so he comes out and he's like a really nice guy, but he just doesn't have any lips, and.
Yeah.
And I used this dental dam. The first incarnations of this character, I had like fishing hooks.
To pull your
fishing wire
your
to pull
cheeks back.
my mouth back,
Yeah.
it was all these hooks all over my
Yeah.
mouth, and I wore this like long wig, kind of hide the bow in the back. But
With fish hooks in your
yeah, it was very
Did it hurt
dangerous.
like hell?
It
Like-
did, but and the end of it, it was always extremely painful. One, to get them off, and then two, to just like let my mouth reconstruct. But
yeah,
but anyway, I then put a dental dam in because I was like, oh, this makes a lot more sense. And that like dentists use, to clean
Right,
your teeth
right,
and stuff.
right.
So it made my mouth widen, and I came up with all these ways to make this bit funny by like I'm eating food, or I'm like trying to whistle, or I'm trying to like suck from a straw, all these things you can't do without any lips.
Right.
But I was a trained professional, and so I was this freak that could do all of these things, even though I didn't. But it was
Yeah.
just it was just a mess. I just got a mess. And then years after me doing this, I started getting like people who I'd been doing it at music festivals or
yeah,
other performances, and people who had seen me do it were like, oh, these guys are copying you, or this is did you know this existed? And it became like a late night talk show gag where it was like a game
yeah.
or challenge.
Like,
It was
see
a
what you can
challenge.
do with this thing. in
So
your mouth.
yeah, you put the thing in your mouth, and you have all of these like things that you can do. And I was like, oh man, I should have like recorded this
Right.
character like in a video or something. Like now it's you. Now
Right.
I've just copied everyone. But I was like, oh, they took my idea, but they didn't take my. Nobody saw the bit.
right. But-
It was a timing thing. But when I first started doing it, it was like, this is crazy. It was weird.
Yeah,
And it was so dumb, but yet like I was so committed to the stupidity that I was like, this is it. This is what I
Yeah.
liked this. I liked this character I created. And now it's a board game now.
isn't
Like,
that crazy?
if you can go buy those dental dams, and you have a series of cards that you got to like compete with each other.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, that character, I'll still do it every now and then, but like, it's not, it's now I feel as though the audience is like, oh, he took a piece of a board game and now he's
But you've been doing it for so long, like, you know what I mean?
It was just a thing that I was doing, and now I don't like it anymore.
See, that's a magicians deal with that.
I'm sure it's so
because
hard with those kind of things.
Well, I mean, there's only so many impossible things you can do, and there's only so many objects you can use to do.
Right.
So, I mean, in Magic, it is a big thing where people just steal. They see something, they go, "Oh, that's great! I'm going to do that." And it's like, I wasn't here like giving you a workshop on ideas you can use, you know?
Oh, I can imagine.
But man, yeah, there becomes that moment where you started with something that was so creative and so different, and now other people, either through their own creativity, have come up with similar ideas. Yeah, I have things right now that I used to love that I'm like, I don't like doing it anymore because now it looks like,
it doesn't mean the same thing.
Yeah.
I guess it's similar in a standard comedic, like a stand-up comedian or whatever you could just call a standard comic. Doing a joke that they used to crush, like they could even do it at like stadiums or whatever. And comedy is so specific to the times and specific to your environment or what group you're performing for. And so it's like a shelf life. It could be just overdone or it doesn't work anymore. And it's funny to think of that as like a magic trick or any kind of like prop heavy bit because they seem like they're completely different, but in a way, it's like people's experiences change, people grow, and people, it's always people overdo it. People have never seen it or they've seen it too much. It's so circumstantial and time. It just makes you have to do more, I guess.
Right.
Which is beautiful in a way.
It is.
Forcing you to just make more.
I've been lately talking to friends, magician friends, and kind of challenging each other. Magicians don't tend to get rid of material as quick as comedians do.
Totally, yeah.
I mean, so like hard. You know this. You see so many do so many variety shows with magicians, and you see a lot of us keep doing the same bits. And comedians, especially nowadays, you could do a 45-minute set for your career. Yeah. And now it's like you got a new hour every year.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah.
And I think that magic would be much better if magicians took that attitude.
Man, it'd be so hard. I mean,
it's really hard.
I don't have a single trick. Like I could not do anything that you do, but I can only imagine because I think I'm from the same world of like, if I have to repeat or I have to like refine or I have to do it exactly right or else if I do an angle that's slightly different, it's ruined. I'm like, oh my God, like that's like, to me, that's impossible. So I can't do magic because it is impossible. And so I can only imagine like having to reproduce something once every 2 months, once every even just once a year is like insane to me to like have to come up with a trick once a year.
You know what's interesting is with your characters, you do as a comedian and as a very physical comedian, but you create these characters that have elaborate costumes. So you do get a lot of the things magicians get with like having to refine and build props.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I love too that like there's something amazing about how gloriously unpractical many of your pieces are.
You
know what I mean? Like you have to be in this thing that you're very unable to move a lot in or have this piece of equipment that is massive, where is it all? Like I walked in here, I'm like, where are all the characters?
Yeah, right. They're disassembled. If you look out the window, there's a small little playhouse that I kind of store them all in. Oh,
that's amazing.
I only recently got it waterproofed, so before they were just like, this would be a nightmare for me right now.
Would you be panicking?
I would be like, oh God,
pacing,
I hope that it's like, did I package them all up? Will I have to put them in Ziplocs?
Then you have to get in there and dry them all up. Make sure they're all.
I had to. Yeah, it was all. Anytime it rained, which wasn't that often, but man, if I was out of town and it was raining, I would be like,
no, your phone would go off. You'd hear your
ringtone. Send myself a text.
Send myself a text. Yeah, man.
There's so many unpractical ways, and I get frustrated with myself at times, especially if it's like if it's like a booby trap show where I'm only doing a 4-minute bit and I'm hauling this like massive costume to do 4 minutes, I'm always like, what are you doing? You could have done your character that just wears a Speedo. Like that would have been so many. Sometimes I do if I'm in that mood where I'm like, I'm not doing a costume. I'm doing a non-costume costume.
Right.
And, but for me, a lot of times these costumes, if not all the time, having an elaborate costume immediately puts me into this mode of like commitment or this mode of like unrivaled stupidity.
It's like when someone goes, I don't feel like going out, but I'm already dressed up.
Yeah. Oh, it's totally the exact same thing. I'll not be ready to perform.
Right.
And then I'll throw a chicken costume where my arms like are now wings. Like physically they are only nubby wings.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah. I can do this easily. I'm in it and it's all, it forces me to be committed, and then I can overcommit on top of that, which makes it a little more, I don't know.
It kind of puts you already at you're already at like level 5 before you get on stage.
And a lot of times the audience, for me, they need that. If you were to go out as a comedian and be like, I'm a chicken, and you're just in normal street clothes, and then they're going to be like, okay, I'm waiting for you to prove your commitment level. And then you have to really embody it, and you can get away with it.
Right.
But that's you've wasted like 2 minutes to try to get them on your side, or to, like, be vulnerable enough for that window to open and then be like, all right, now I'm on board. If I come out being very stupid and having a very dumb costume, and I automatically visually have committed and visually been vulnerable enough to be like, we all know you're a grown man.
Right.
And you're in an animal costume. We're going to see where this goes, because you have a lot of potential to fail. And we're gonna be here to see this.
Yeah, visibly from the first time you walk on stage, the stakes are high.
The second they go, okay, let's see. And yes, I can fail very, like, the worst kind of fail, but I can also go out there and be vulnerable and have them be like, but you're telling a story? Like, is this a story? Like, and jump on this wagon, and I can get them immediately, or I could fall immediately, or something that gets them to be like, okay, that was something, you know, that was giggle worthy. And so it helps a lot.
That's great. Yeah. Well, and people, you know, with like, magic, one of the things that I keep bringing back to magic because that's the nerdy world.
I love. By the way, I'm a huge fan of magic,
really?
And I think it's also because I can't do anything, and I'm the guy who goes to the magic castle and has an extreme headache afterwards.
Really?
I'm just like, I'm smiling so hard, but also my brain's going a million miles an hour, and I'm like, how did they do that? It's got to be real. It's magic. It's real. Ghosts are real.
This is Hogwarts. This is Hogwarts, and they just changed the name for us.
Exactly. So go on, please go on.
I was just going to say that with magic, one of the things that's interesting is you spend so much time, unlike a dancer or a musician, where you spend so much time putting into something like a move that no one's going to see. So an audience, when they hear there's a magician or when they see a magician walk out, it takes a minute for them to figure out, okay, how committed is this guy to his art, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But when you walk on stage, because of your persona and how you enter and your costuming, like you were saying, like people right away go, oh, this guy, whatever. I don't know what this guy's going to do, but he's committed to it.
Right,
you
right.
know?
And it goes both ways sometimes. Like, people will viscerally be mad at me when I first come out, because they're like, no.
You're not a caterpillar.
Exactly.
You are not.
They truly.
This guy thinks he's a mermaid.
Why is everybody still watching this? Don't you know he's not? Like, you can't be as dumb as he is. So it can go both ways, but that's what I actually love, is that I could polarize a person just by walking out sometimes. And then if I can get them by the end, that's the real like trick, is to the people who immediately hate me. And if I can get them to laugh by the end, then I've won a war.
Right.
I've succeeded in something greater than me.
Yeah.
So
that's fantastic, man. With your material as well, it's so conducive to TV because of the fact that you can instantly establish a character, you know, and you've done a lot of TV as of late, even a bunch.
Yeah, a lot of talent show TV. I think I don't know what genre it is, but
talent show TV.
Yeah.
So you want to talk a little bit about some of those shows? And what that experience has been like for you?
For me, it's been a very interesting like dive into a world that I didn't have a clue really existed. Like, there's people who do this kind of a thing, like talent show TV, like they'll go on like circuits around the world, and be competing. They're competing though. They're really trying.
Oh, they're trying to
win
they're
whatever
not,
it is.
They're not coming in as like a feature or like a guest act. They're trying to win.
They're doing their thing.
Sri Lanka's Got Talent.
I think they're doing a lot of like, exposure, but it's also like they're candidates for this prize or whatever crown they get. But I'm always going for quite literally to see how many people I can like, how many people hate me, and then how many I can convert by the end. I'm like, I'm going in with a mission, a holy mission, and I'm trying to get the conversions, but a lot of times it doesn't happen, and there's just too many people. AGT was amazing to like, I knew exactly how many people were going to be there, and I knew that it was going to be a tough thing, but
where did you guys film that at?
That was in Pasadena at
the Civic Center?
Yes. And it was, I don't remember the capacity of the theater, but it was
it's a large theater,
2,000 or something like. It was somewhere like 2,000 to 3,000. Once it goes past 100 people, I'm just like, it's 1 million. There was 1 million people there. I don't care what you say. There was 1 million eyeballs. 2 million eyeballs.
2 million eyeballs.
Maybe less in case somebody had one, but there was at least 1 million eyeballs.
Sound like the president talking about his inauguration.
Exactly.
There's 4 billion people.
That's how my brain works. It's as smart as the president of the United States. When it's over 100 people, there's something about bodies that I cannot fathom.
At a certain point, an audience becomes a crowd.
Oh, man. And that's for me. If it's more than what a black box theater can hold, which is where I'm usually performing, like if there's 60 to 100 people, then I know how many people are there. When it's more than that, it's a lot. So there was a lot, and I immediately was like, "Oh man, this is so much different than what I prepared for." Because I've been on stages where I've been in front of like way more people, but not. I've never gone on stage. I had to prove myself within a couple of seconds. 90
seconds total, right?
And even shorter for the audience, because. For me, it was, I'm going to do something bold in the beginning to get everyone on my side. And I thought, how about a great old fashioned pratfall? And I'll be in this caterpillar costume, and I'll just fall on my face, and then I'll get him immediately up top. Bad idea. The fall in the face, they hated me immediately after.
Because they thought it was an accident.
They thought I was tripped. Like, this dude can't even walk on stage properly.
Oh, man.
I will not be on his side. I will not give him the benefit of the doubt, and I will not even wait to hear his name. And they stood up and started booing like right after I fell. And the segment they aired on TV, they don't show everyone immediately hating me. But boy, was it like a visceral like energy that I hit my face. I get up, and then a wall of hate hits me again, and I go, "What have I done? What have I done? Wrong choice. Back up." But by that time, it's way too late. You're in it.
You're like, but I've committed.
So I just so I commit more, and then you go on. But man, that was. The audience there, and then in Germany, it was a similar experience where there was a lot of people, and for what I was told, the Germans spoke English well enough for me to be understood. But I dare say they didn't know enough, or maybe I'm not being fair. They just hated whatever I had to give. But it was complete silence throughout most of my bit. And then my girlfriend came, who's a wonderful person. Lori Lusk is a divine individual. She went through the whole experience with me, sat in the audience, and there was a moment where I landed a genius joke. I cannot tell you how funny and how witty I was in that moment in a snake costume. I have to explain this to you because it was too good and I didn't get the response I wanted. But I'm sitting there and I ate one of the judges as a snake. He goes through my digestive system costume.
Did he know this was going to happen?
I do not think so. I think that he was prepped as in he's going to be a volunteer.
But he
just
didn't
say
know.
yes. They were like, they kept telling him like, don't worry, it's going to be great. Just say yes to it. So he willingly got up, was my volunteer. And then I had never met the guy. I didn't even know who this guy was. He was a German supermodel.
He's gonna manhandle him.
Yeah, and he's like 7 foot tall, like a large man. Yeah. And I'm sitting there like thinking, as soon as I like see him stand up from the judges, I'm like, this is not going to work. I don't know.
There's weights and balances.
I've never done this before.
Gravity is not on my side.
Yeah, I purposefully not tried and practiced with a 7 foot tall man because why would I?
Why would you? Yeah.
So I actually get him up and he's going down, but he freaks out halfway through and rips out of my costume. I don't know if he used his teeth, if this German supermodel had like razor fingers or what.
Wolverine claws.
But he got out and he got out quick. He dug his way out, ripped a hole, climbed out, and they're talking to me a little bit, and I realized, because I didn't even know that's what he had done. I thought he got through my butthole. Not at all. And I see it, and I look up, and they said something like, "Do you have anything else to say?" or something. And I was like, one more thing before I go. I was like, you literally ripped me a new one and just silence. Like,
really?
Nothing.
Oh, that's
this was also after they said, "No, you don't have any talent. Is it yes or no for you?" No. Sorry, it's a no for me. And I was like, you ripped me a new one. And nothing. And then I hear in the back, Lori, my darling, like partner, is back there just laughing like really loud. The only one. And I knew it was her. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, thanks, babe. Thanks for that. I needed that.
Well, the Germans have not been known for their love of humor.
I mean, definitely not butthole jokes. I can contest to that.
Oh my goodness. What is that like? It's one thing when you go to Pasadena and that happens and then you drive home.
Yeah.
What's it like when you go to Germany?
Oh man. Well, that for me happened after AGT, and so it was at this point I was like, this is just great. This is fun. Like, this is a fun thing. It would have been awesome to like make it to the next level and then bring another costume, kind of build on that.
Yeah.
So that would have been fun, but it's also like I knew I wasn't going to. Like, I know going into these things that it is very obviously the last time I'm going to see these people in this costume for sure. And so I'm very well prepped. And after that, it was kind of a relief because, man, the whole Germany snake thing has so many different stories that I could go on and on.
Really?
Well, I had a snake suit I used to do all the time, and I stopped doing it for a year because I lost the costume, and it was...
How did you lose it?
I have my theories. It just disappeared one day, but I had it... I was traveling to a festival, and I put it in a bag because it was kind of rainy, in a trash bag. I tied it up, put it in the back of my truck. So it either flew out of the back of my truck in a trash bag, and it's on the side of the road, and there's a homeless man who's living inside of a snake costume, and I'm okay with that.
It's part of like an encampment.
Yeah. There's just a snake man out there. Very warm though, warm dude. Or it was left behind, and I packed up right by my trash cans, and a roommate just threw it away. But no one will agree to that being the case, which I don't blame him. I would have gone crazy on him. Yeah. But it is gone, and that was a couple of years ago. And so for a while, I was just like, well, I'm going to do other characters. And Germany was like, we want snake. We don't want anything else. And I was like, but Caterpillar's pretty hot right now. You sure you don't want an ugly butterfly?
Caterpillar's the new snake.
He's the new snake. Listen, you don't know. But they wanted a snake, and I was like, all right, I'll have to make another snake. And so but everything was all very last minute. So they were like, okay. And they were like, maybe not. And then they were like, here's your plane ticket 2 days before I left.
What? And they wanted you to do snake?
They wanted to do snake. And I was like, I don't have a snake. But I wasn't telling them that. I was just like, okay, we'll do a snake. So I like started feverishly sewing together, and my dumb idea was like, if I'm going to redo a costume, it's going to be better this time. So I'm like,
I'm in a rush.
I'm in a rush and trying to make it better by putting this like pop-up like visor, like hood to a viper snake thing, and not working out. Again, I don't know how to make things. I just try to do it, and then most of the time they fail, and then I problem solve. But we had a half-finished snake costume when we got on the plane, and then we flew to Germany, and I'm performing like almost immediately, like it was the night, and then the next morning early, we have to be at the thing. And so, bless her heart, my darling girlfriend, who's my partner and assistant. That's why she got to go, because she was assisting me. She really had to assist, and she's stitching up. She's helping me hand stitch the snake while we're stuffing it right before. And they're like, can you be ready in 10? We're like, 15 maybe? And also maybe an hour. And so it was like kind of falling apart while I was doing it. And then he rips a hole in it anyway. So by the end of the bit, just ripped the costume off.
So you're back to no snake. You have no snake again?
I stitched it back up, but
fixed a new one.
It's not great. It is definitely not better. It is not a better snake, but I do have a snake. But anyway, so that was so stressful for her. Like, she worried so much for me. I felt so bad, but I was the whole time. I'm like, this is what I do. This is like I was like, I don't want it to look bad on camera. I definitely don't want it to look bad in Germany. This is the first time I've ever performed here. And so but I wasn't stressed out. Like, I knew whatever was going to happen, it was going to happen. Yeah. If the costume quite literally fell apart on stage, I would have made a bit that I was shedding my skin or something. I don't know. It would have worked.
Yeah.
But to her, it was like, I've been in charge of assisting you. You're going to fail, and it's going to be half of my fault, and I can't handle that. And I'm like, no.
You're like, it's okay.
And that's what I think people don't. I think a lot of times people don't get, or they're nervous for me on stage, or I fall and they're like, oh no, like they feel so bad for me. I had a friend one time come up to me so disappointed after a show, and she was like, why? Like, why? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know either, right? I don't know why I do the things she does. She's like, we have so much pain and so much like terror in the world today. Why are you adding to it? And I was like, and I like stopped me like immediately. And I was like, oh, what am I doing? Am I a comedic terrorist? Is that what I'm doing right now? Is like causing people to have this like visceral reaction of like dread, or like worried for my safety or whatever. And so I like took a moment, and then I got a little defensive, and I was like, you missed the point. I'm like, you were the only one in the audience that felt that. Like, I can look around. There's 10 people in the audience.
Right. As a performer, you can feel
that. But at first when she said it, I was like, I guess I wasn't checking in. And I was like, no, this is what I do. Like, that's really all I have.
Right.
I don't have a magic trick that, whether you like it or not, it's genius because I spend a lot of time on it. I don't have like any other skill-based trick that I'm like riding a unicycle or juggling, and I didn't drop the balls, so it's awesome. And I don't care if you didn't like it. It was genuine. My skill is connecting with people and being able to read them and being able to go cross a line or not cross a line. And at that one show in particular, maybe I crossed the line for her, but but it wasn't terrorism. They weren't asking for it. They were ready. The audience as a whole was wanting to go there, was wanting that danger, and I didn't hurt anybody and I didn't hurt myself.
Right.
And maybe people got nervous, maybe people were timid, or maybe there was anxiety in the moment, but that's why horror movies are made. That's why people that's what stories do, is they make you feel sad. They make you feel concerned. They make you wish for the success of the hero. Right. They make you feel like you want the villain to die. They make you feel. Right. And that's what I was doing. And she just she didn't like that she felt so much at that moment, but also was genuinely concerned with my well-being. And so those two combined made her almost confront me. But I had never had that before as a performer. Have somebody come up to me almost angry that I would have done something to myself like that. And so it made me think, but it also helped me grow as a performer to be like, no, there is validity in whatever I'm doing. Absolutely. Even if it's not something that you really liked at that moment or was ready for.
Well, people don't often get opportunities to be genuinely moved, whether it's with fear or joy, or, you know what I mean? In a theatrical setting, very rarely do people get that suspension of disbelief where they can go, wow, this makes me consider my own actions, or you know what I mean? So I think it's natural that she didn't know how to react in that moment. But I think it also points to the fact that what you're doing is great because you're invested. And because you're invested, other people feel invested in it. Right. You know, I've never liked magicians putting someone in a box and cutting them in half. A nameless woman comes on stage wearing a nice outfit. They put her in a box, they cut her in half, and she walks off stage. Right. Beyond the objectification of it.
Yeah.
I don't know her. And if you don't know a person, if you don't connect with them, you're not going to care if they're in danger. Sure. So it also speaks boldly that she cared enough, that she was upset that you might be injured. Right. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that's another encouraging thing of oh, wow, you actually were there with them.
Yeah, it did make me feel like that. In a way, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, it kind of validated the idea of making people feel something.
Yeah.
But it was shocking at first, especially the first time. You're like, oh man, am I doing something that is just not okay? And I definitely had moments where I did do things that were not
cross
okay.
the line.
Yeah,
you get so into the moment that you're like, oh, oops, there was a boundary there.
Oh, there are some specifics. And if you've performed, anybody could tell you Scott's got moments that he's like, yes, I've crossed the line. And that was when I really started thinking about getting legal representation for his show.
Yeah, that prepaid legal doesn't sound like a bad idea.
It was almost necessary when Seth got on stage. So there definitely have been times, but I've grown so much as a performer, and I've been lucky enough to not have any extreme disasters where I've really I couldn't undo something. So that's that's good.
That's great, man.
I'm blessed to not have certain, because there are risks that I take, and I haven't crushed my skull on anything yet, and things of that nature. So
yeah, that's good. It's always a bonus when you're going over the show in your head, and you're like, okay, did I crush my skull? No,
didn't do that one this time.
And sometimes when you have a rough audience, or you're like,
maybe I should have crushed my skull.
No, maybe that should have. Not crushing my skull is well, at least that didn't happen.
Yeah, at least.
I did a show. I did a corporate event night before last in Alabama.
Oh, nice.
Which every time I go to Alabama, I'm grateful to leave Alabama.
Yeah, I'm sure there's
but
moments.
it was interesting because it was supposed to be this fancy corporate dinner, and it was for a heating, plumbing, and air conditioning company.
Nice.
So it's a bunch of people who are used to just not dressing fancy. working with the hands, you know,
I
climbing
love
around the
this,
attics,
yeah.
fixing stuff. So they have them all get dressed up in this like ball gowns and tuxedos and stuff. But then they tell everyone they can bring their children if they want. So imagine like all these parents dressed to the nine with like tuxedos and an open bar, but none of them are getting drinks because their kids are with them.
Oh, that's great.
And then the kids are wanting to run around, but they can't have any fun because the parents are telling, and then they're like,
yeah.
and here's the magician.
Oh, man. Everybody's kind of just ready to be done.
Yeah. There's those moments where you're like, this was not the ideal moment to walk on stage and, hey guys, look at me.
Oh, man. Yeah.
What do you do? And I know we could talk all day long about this, but I mean, that's the point of this podcast. What do you do when there's those moments when you question, like, is this what I should be doing with my life?
Yeah, I think that going back to the roots of when I really decided that's what I wanted to do and kind of like readdressing that.
Yeah.
I've actually never had I see it happen so many times where people are like, I actually don't know what I want to do, or they change it right in the middle, or they're changing constantly. I think especially this generation is very indecisive of career goals and stuff. But for me, I feel I'm very lucky at an early age to know exactly, like, I want to be an entertainer. I want to do comedy. I want to do movies. That's it. And it's very specific, and that's what I'm driving for. And there's certain things like performing at music festivals isn't the same as making movies, but it's not, I'm not waiting, like really trying hard to be a manager at a bar or something like that. I've never had to work a complete shift tangent to be able to make that happen, because I feel I've been very focused. And there are times whenever I'm like, am I doing the right way, or am I doing the most efficient way to get here? Yep. But I've never had a moment where I was like, I think I'm doing it wrong. I think I don't want to do this. If there's ever any moments of being like, am I doing this the right way? Then I'll kind of double down, or I'll start like scaling back certain things. I did a live show for a year and a half where I was hosting, and it was to me, it was a genius, comedy show idea where I was using all of this technology and everything was kind of falling apart. But on a technological level, it made it so much more, it was a heightened, aesthetic. So there was like phones going off in the middle of it, and videos playing that aren't supposed to be projected on the screen. And I was giving people the option to project anything that they wanted on the screen. Wow. Anyway, it was mad chaos. And to me, it was a lot of fun, and it was like new, and no one was doing a live show like this in LA, and from what I'd seen. But then I started realizing it was taking all this prep. It was all this energy, and like nobody came to the show. It was so little. It was such a little audience, and I started realizing that it was not the most efficient way to get to be a comedic movie actor. And so I stopped doing the show, but it was so hard to stop doing that. Yep. But that's what I'll do whenever I start realizing, am I stuck or am I not moving as close to my goal? Is I'll try to scale back, or really analyze how many irons do I have in the fire, which are a lot. There's always a lot. And which ones do I start pulling out? And I'm like, this is not serving me.
Yeah,
it's serving, really good. It may be serving me, but it's not serving the main goal. Yep. It's actually taking time away. So that's where I'll usually go to.
And giving yourself permission to go, and to not then go, well, that was a bad idea to ever do that.
Right.
But to realize maybe for that season, maybe even I've done this before where you go like, oh, this show was great. It should be a monthly show. Well, no, maybe that was a one-off. Maybe. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think that self-auditing and, being critical of it in a way to go like, is this really helping push me forward? But not critical of it as like, oh, I screwed up by doing that.
Oh, totally. Totally.
Because every one of these experiences is helping lead you to the next thing. And
and that's actually for that specific example, there was, it was so hard for me to stop that I made an itemized list of the benefits that it was for me, and then the cons. That was something my dad always used to tell me. He's like, make a list of do the good things and the bad things. It makes it easier to decide. And I was like, I don't want to make a list. It's a lot of work. I have to do more work for something I'm trying to do less work
paper.
For. Yeah, I
need a pencil. It's not going to be sharp.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so unnecessary. But I realize it's actually so much easier, and it also helps you realize that it wasn't a mistake at all.
Right.
And that's why it is so hard to do it, is because there were a lot of pros. I was getting a lot of benefits from spending my time doing this. It's just whenever it outweighs it.
Yep.
So I'm able to keep that list and be like, okay, this wasn't bad. I don't hate myself for doing this.
Right.
I'm going to learn from all these things.
That's so good, man. Dude, I can't believe it's been an hour.
Woo!
How does that happen?
Dude, I love talking.
Fast.
I love talking. That's the answer to that question.
Oh my! Well,
it.
you should start a podcast, man. That's all it is.
Man, that would be dangerous. Me doing my own podcast, dangerous. There's too many people who do it so well on their own.
Oh, dude, this has been too great. We're gonna have to do a part 2.
I would love it.
We're gonna do a part 2.
Love it.
But right now, tell people how they can follow along and see what you're doing. And
yeah,
dude, I'm sorry. I asked you a question, then I'm like, but hold on, let me tell you. Hold on, let me say some more words,
please.
I forget where I was at, but it was somewhere I shouldn't have been laughing.
Good.
And I saw you posted your video. This was a few months back when you posted the turkey video.
Oh yeah.
And
oh man, that's an epic.
I think we were at my in-laws' house, and we were in the middle of a very serious conversation. Like,
good.
The family was talking about not it wasn't like a fight, but there was like important things that needed to be happening.
Good.
And I almost pissed my pants watching you with this turkey all over the kitchen.
Yeah. That just kept going too. That video I think is like 11 minutes. It's so
if you're okay with it, I'm going to put a link to that on the show notes. People need to go see that.
Perfect. Yeah, that's one of those I'm real proud of. Truly,
it's fantastic.
I finished editing that video and I was like, this needs to be 3 minutes. It's 11, and you know what? I'm not gonna cut anything out. I'm okay.
Every beautiful salmonella covered.
Oh, my mom was terrified. She's like, "Are you alive?"
Kitchen? Whose kitchen was that?
That was mine right here. That thing got real gross. That was a real turkey, and you know what? I bought it the night before we shot, and it did not fit in the fridge, so it just sat. It sat on the table, and I was putting it over my head and thinking, this may be the last video I ever do. And I'm all right with it because it's going to be great. It was, and that poor actress that I got to do it with me. This is crazy story. This is sorry.
We're going long. Was this like a Craigslist?
So no, I had performed with her or around her a couple of times, and is a genius comedian. I love her to death. And we had been talking. I had fairly new acquaintance.
Yeah.
And man, we were flirting. We were going at it. Like we were, there were sparks flying. There was chemistry there. And I was like, let's do a video where we're lovers in this video. And she agreed to it, which means I knew it was real.
Yeah.
She gets there and I'm like, so we need to have you stick your hand in the turkey. And she's like, I can't do this. Is real. And apparently a long time ago, she had her mom got very, very ill from a turkey prep on one Thanksgiving, and it stuck with her for all these years. Like, she got so ill that it's terrified
She's been into counseling,
scarred her
specifically for this,
for turkey prep. And I was like, trauma. This could not go worse. But we got her gloves, and she was a trooper, and she handled it. But oh man, it was a moment that I was like, I don't know you that well, and I'm asking a lot.
Right.
I'm asking a lot of you. And she dug through it, and it, I don't know, it turned out great.
Oh my goodness.
She's a wonderful human.
That's amazing.
But
so you have to go, everyone's got to go watch the video. And while they're there, they should subscribe on your
Yes.
YouTube channel.
That's where most of my stuff is, on my YouTube, youtube.com/Sethward. I'm finally getting my Patreon up.
Yeah, buddy.
Starting that, baby. It was I created a page, and then I was like, I don't know how to do this, and then I slowly started making it happen.
Yeah.
And it should be live this week. So
sweet.
by the time the podcast comes out, baby, it's gonna be primo della Patreon.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. You could find me on there. But
That's
yeah,
great.
my YouTube's the main spot, Sethward.
We'll put links to both those on the show notes. People need to
Awesome.
go check it out. And
Oh, that's great.
it's so good.
Lincoln's.
I'm very, very excited for your Patreon. I think I tried to push you to that. I think we were at
yeah.
Scott Neary's house.
That was when I started working on it.
we were at Scott Neary's house, and I was like, and you were like, what is
I was
this?
like, I've heard of Patreon, but it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
Yeah.
But yeah,
This
I've
has been
done a little more research, and I made a video, and I really think it's gonna work with my schedule and like the way I operate.
I think it really
Accountability,
suits your
an audience,
your
like
setup.
it's yeah. So I love it.
That's beautiful. Well, guys, go check it out. Go become a patron.
A new patron.
A new patron, and
Yes.
you could call them the saints. They'd be patron saints.
Oh man, genius!
So go over there and
Become a saint.
Yeah, buy your sainthood for $5 a month.
Yes.
And go subscribe on YouTube and follow along, dude. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
I've had a blast.
Oh, I love it.